This week, the side characters have taken the center stage, and we're going to talk about that and more on today's episode of the Geek Watch podcast.
This is the Geek Watch podcast with Brian Hatcher and Mandy Petrie.
Greetings, Geek Watchers, and welcome to episode 232 of the Geek Watch podcast. I'm Brian Hatcher, and with me, as always, Geek Watch's very own resident geek goddess, Mandy Petrie.
Hello, Brian.
So before we get started, I would like to all of our Geek Watchers out there who download our podcast from Apple Podcasts or other audio only, I would like to formally apologize for what was probably a bunch of announcements that you got, a bunch of pop-ups about several new episodes. Let me explain what happened. We host the audio portion of the podcast through SoundCloud, and they had an incident where a lot of our episodes disappeared. And it wasn't just us. They were having a site-wide problem. They had to do a restore of their site. And because of that, a bunch of episodes then suddenly reappeared. And of course, depending on if you go through Apple Podcasts or Spotify or whatever, then it appeared to all those hosts that we were putting up a bunch of new episodes. Now, they were all old episodes, but because they just immediately popped up, my apologies for getting a bunch of announcements if you did. I certainly did. But our apologies. The notification you got for this podcast, this is a new one. I promise. I absolutely promise. But my apologies for that.
We'll have to start every episode with, this is new.
This,
But after a while, that won't work anymore.
Well, do a better job than I do. Keep track of what number it is. And if it's like, okay, well, that's definitely the next number in the podcast. So. But we have one more week until the new Venom movie comes out, and everybody's really excited about that. We do have to make the announcement that after next week, Mandy, you're going to be busy
On hiatus.
For about 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and unfortunately, our usual substitute friend of the podcast, Kevin Polly, will also be with me. We are both doing a show together. I guess we could go in search of another substitute if you would like.
Well, like I said, normally I can tolerate Kevin, but I prefer you. Nothing against Kevin. We love you, Kevin. Mm-hmm. But yeah, usually we just tend to go on hiatus and that. Mm-hmm. But getting into the holiday spirit, the Halloween holiday spirit, with House on Haunted Hill. Mm-hmm. So
live stage play.
So I'm going to be very excited to see that. But that does mean that after next week, there will be a short hiatus. Well, Mandy and company is busy haunting audiences to their delight and terror. But we'll definitely have a lot to talk about before then. And I do want to talk about some television because, has television been good? And we are going to talk Agatha All Along, and we are going to talk spoilers because we're going to have to. But before we get to that, I got to talk Penguin, and I know you haven't seen any of the
Haven't. How's Penguin going?
Oh, goodness. Great. I tell you what, this has been a bumper crop for the side characters. Last week for Penguin, of course, we focused on Vic the kid and got an idea about what he's been going through and a very difficult decision that he had to make and how that turned into something really terrible that happened toward the end of episode 4. But now we got to talk about episode 5, and I'm not going to go into a whole lot of spoilers, but people who've seen this are right now going, oh my God. This was probably, to my estimation, probably one of the best episodes of the show so far.
Ooh,
and what's great about it is it's not a Penguin-centric episode. Oz Cobb at the beginning, and you get a little bit of taste of just how screwed up Oz is because he sells out Sophie. And we're not going to go into a whole lot of spoilers, but this is a very Sofia Falcone-centric episode, especially with what we have seen of Sophie and a lot of assumptions that we as viewers have made about her. This changes everything. This episode, as far as Sophie's concerned, You want to almost go back and watch the episodes before, because there are so many of the scenes that you're going to have a different take on, because there's a lot that you just didn't know about that you do now. Sophie's been through some shit. It's horrible. It's one gut punch after another. So you really do sympathize with her where you didn't before.
HBO's really using their HBO status.
Yeah. Well, the thing about it, if you've been watching the show, you know that Sophie spent 10 years in Arkham. You find out what happened, and it's worse than you could possibly think. But I will say this, as much as it could have been easy to fall into torture porn because of all the terrible, horrible things that happened, this is how good the writing is. You give Sophie a badass, absolutely badass scene at the end of the episode that's just amazing. So the horrible stuff that you have spent nearly an hour going through with Sophie, it leads to something. It's not just, let's kick a character around just to do it. It shows you what her mindset is, but it also explains a lot. She's been a secondary character until right now, and you can see at this point, you can see her developing into what obviously her and Oz are going to come to blows. And you can understand that. And by the end of this episode, although the show's called Penguin, you may not be rooting for Penguin to win.
Okay.
Because there's a lot you get to understand.
We knew Penguin's the bad guy. We've always known.
Yeah. And the thing is, Sophia, she's not a good person. You understand her a lot more. That's certainly the case after this episode. But yeah, it's a hard watch in some places. Just what she went through. But after all of that, you're going to cut her some breaks on some things. Yeah, she does some messed up stuff, but you're going to be like, yeah, I get it. I get it. If that happened to me. At the same time, especially with, again, no spoilers, but the way the episode ends, you realize this is a brand new day. Things have changed. The war has changed. The battle for the top spot in the underworld, it's definitely a new day. It certainly has changed in ways that, as a viewer, I didn't expect. But like I said, without going into a lot of spoilers, I would love to go into a lot. This is one of those episodes that people are going to be talking about for a while. And I don't want to get ahead of myself, but Emmy, yeah, I could see one young actress getting an Emmy out of this.
Wow.
Yeah, it's like that. And I don't know where it's going from here. I mean, we're at the halfway point, and I can't wait. But excellent. What I have been really excited to do is I wanted to go into a spoiler discussion with you, Agatha All Along. This new episode 6, we're getting into the tail end of things. So we're going to just, at this point, we're going to say spoilers, everyone. So if you haven't seen it yet, again, I'm going to say, what are you doing? Pause it here because you don't want this spoiled, certainly. Let's begin our spoiler section the way that I always love to do it. Mandy, what did you think?
Oh, Brian, okay. Every episode in this show, it's tugged at your heartstrings. We've had some scenes that are just pull a little bit. This one did not hold back. It ripped your heart out of your chest so many times. It broke my heart. At every turn, your heart was broken. The voices you heard, and you didn't even have to see the scene to know what was going on. It was such a good episode, and the reveals that happened, the mysteries that were solved, all the stuff that we learned. It's getting to see the other half of the conversation, the interrogation, that was brilliant. Getting to see that was so clever. And seeing, we found out, we knew it was Billy, but seeing how he came back to life, that was tragic. And that someone had to die for him to come back to life.
Right.
And knowing that he's out there trying to find his brother, it's a beautiful story, and it's heart-wrenching, heartbreaking, and it's so good. And we still got the humor. We just got it on the tail end rather than the front end. It's really funny at the front end, and then during the trials, we'll usually get those heart-wrenching, gut-churning scenes that make us want to cry. We got that at the beginning. And thank you, Evan Peters, for coming back. Man, that was just...
the return of Ralph Boner.
That was great. Thank you for that.
Well, that explained
fantastic.
that explained that empty section. We talked about it before, the pentagram illustration over Westview. And of course, we knew there was going to be a name. Evan Peters was that name. They managed once again to give us that surprise. But oh my God, the thing is, that character was so different. He'd been through some stuff.
Yes.
It's really interesting how they've set this up because, again, as you mentioned, we now know that Billy's reason for wanting to walk the witch's road is to find his brother. Mm-hmm. Because obviously power isn't any interest to him because he has power.
He's got power.
Even though he's not in a place to control it yet, certainly power that is comparable to his mother, the Scarlet Witch. At least we know that. But what's really interesting is we're now in a situation that I didn't expect to be in, which is he's turned into the main character, and Agatha, who we followed up to this point, we don't really know who she is anymore, do we? After what happened in the previous episode, her personality in a real sense has changed. Right. Even though she has been the main character and we've been following her around, the story has made her a stranger to us. And so she's now the great unknown. That's amazing storytelling.
And I still want to know. I still want to watch it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there have been several TV shows that have done that, switched the main character, and people have stopped watching it. Name several. There's a great TV show back in the 90s, American Gothic.
Yeah.
Switched main characters midway through, broke the viewership. But man, do I want to know what happens. And I can't wait for the next trial. I want to see it. And we know the witches are returning because we've seen previews. And can't wait to see them. And seeing the witch was the police officer during the wreck.
Uh-huh.
So, was she a part of the spell? And that gives us another mystery to be solved. How did she get there? Was that just another job that she had because she kept having to switch jobs?
Yeah.
So
well, that's what's interesting is that all of our coven showed up in that episode. Mm-hmm. All of them.
Yes.
Which I thought was a great setup.
Great.
And of course, now we know that Lilia was the one who created the rune.
Right.
And we know why.
Mm-hmm.
And I had talked to you before about the idea that we might get to see what the other side of the conversation looked like, which we did. We got a piece of that as well.
Yes, that's great.
But again, your heart breaks for Billy because in a real sense, he was lost because he wasn't sure how he got there. He had some memories, but how reliable those memories are, I mean, obviously he was a created being. But this idea of wanting to get his brother back, but in a real sense, how does he do that?
He has this guilt surrounding this family that he took from someone else.
Yeah.
Yep.
Exactly. So how does any of that work? Because he played that role. Mm-hmm. He played the role of William, although he had to be his own person. But where's that line drawn? Mm-hmm. And it is heartbreaking, but, he does get his brother back. What does that mean? Mm-hmm. We don't know. But then what in the heck is going on in Agatha's head at this point? We don't know. She has become an enigma to us.
Mm-hmm. And that she is trying to coach and mentor him and tell him, this is what witches have done. You survived. It's okay to feel this way. And she's trying to get through to him and say, it's okay to survive. It's okay to feel this way. And she even says, that brand new body you're wearing and don't feel bad about it.
Yeah. And
is she trying to just use him to help her get through the road? Is she actually trying to form a bond with him so she has someone, a friend, a companion? Is she changing?
Well, the lesson she's teaching him is it's okay to do whatever you have to do to survive. Mm-hmm. That doesn't sound like somebody to trust.
Nope.
But at the same time, we still haven't got the answer to the question, where did Rio go? Mm-hmm. Where is she? Because we haven't seen her yet. She's somewhere. Mm-hmm. She's definitely going to show up later. And of course, the Salem 7 are going to show up later.
Yes.
As far as Jennifer and Lilia, we don't know what happened to them. Obviously, Agatha was able to pull herself out of the swamp. I would think maybe they may be able to manage it themselves. I think we'll see them next episode, possibly. Mm-hmm. How that's going to manifest, I don't know. But there are 9 episodes, as I recall.
I think they said there's 3 episodes left.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Which means that we only have 2 weeks left because we get 1 episode next week and then we get a double shot the week after.
Okay.
So they're going to end it the way they began it.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to get a double portion, 2 episodes. So knowing they were going to do that, I guess I figure they knew that's the way they were going to do it. If I had to make a guess, being the sadistic writer that I am, I suspect episode 8 is going to have one hell of a cliffhanger. It's going to be a pretty horrific cliffhanger. So bad that you could be saying to yourself, thank God I don't have to wait a week. But they've got 3 episodes left. They have set a table for some amazing storytelling. That and Penguin both. I don't know where they go. I guess we'll see.
We shall see.
And with that said, we come to the end of episode 232. Thank you for listening, and tune in next time for the latest in geek news and views with the Geek Watch podcast. For Mandy Petrie, this is Brian Hatcher, reminding all the Geek Watchers out there, we're all geeky about something. Be proud of yours. See you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Geek Watch podcast. If you enjoyed this program, don't forget to like and subscribe on your preferred platform and share this podcast on your social media. For links to all the ways you can listen to the Geek Watch podcast, as well as leave comments and suggestions, visit our website at geekwatch.net. The Geek Watch podcast is a Hanging J production.